Whoever's got a dog might need to mute.
I know. 2 seconds. It just keeps flying off.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you so much. Excellent stuff. We're still getting people join. Fantastic. That's what I like to see.
People still coming in.
Absolutely. Okay, so before we start, I would like to say a big thank you to Wayne for arranging this and setting up and doing all the legwork, and remind everyone that this is brought to us by the EdTech Demonstrator Program in schools and colleges. There is a website you can go to find out more in the chat. Without this organization, we wouldn't be having these webinars, we wouldn't be sharing good practice. And in a time of COVID-19 where everyone is apart, they bring us together, and they're doing it for the students as well. So a massive thank you to them for organizing this, and a massive thank you to Wayne for organizing this as well. Okay. Okay, before we get started, let me just go ahead and start preparing my stuff over here. If you have any questions during this piece, please post them in the chat. If Wayne is here, hopefully he'll let me know if there's any there. Yeah. If not, I'll pop in every once in a while to see if there's anything there. Occasionally, I'm going to ask you a few questions. I'd like you to just type those responses into the chat as well, so we can collate and share good practice. I might ask you to maybe go on voice to expand on that, but if you'd rather chat, totally fine. Not going to ask you to come on camera or anything, so that also is okay. So let me just present this now.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
Where are you from?
I'm from the UK. Where are you from?
I'm from Brazil.
Welcome. Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, we're just getting started now, so thank you very much. Excellent stuff. Okay. So here we go. All right, here we are then. So we should all be able to see this now. Let me know if you can't. So this is Digital Creativity and Divergent Thinking by me, Josh Spears. Here are my details. So if you want to send me an email, please do, jspears@darlington.ac.uk. You can read all my articles on Voice. I write pretty much about education and the digital medium and how things are changing. I also do little lesson plans, things you can do with your own kids. I just like to kind of get my ideas out there in article format. Please go and have a read. And also you can watch my YouTube videos, Josh Educates, and it's mostly English based. I'm looking to expand over the winter into maybe more digital learning topics, but otherwise it's mostly just GCSE English, but it's great revision stuff anyway. Okay, so without further ado, today I want to focus on 3 separate points. The first are the 2 separate roles of creative and divergent practice within our classrooms. I want us to define creativity for us and them being, of course, our lovely learners, and 3 awesome creative and divergent digital methods you can use in assessing, designing, and revising with your students, okay, as well as creating as well. So those are our main focus points today, and I'm hoping to get through this by 4:30, but we might finish a little early, we might finish a little later, who knows, depending on how many questions we get. So let's get started. So creative and divergent teaching practice is a balancing act, okay? We're balancing it against 2 things. The first is you have to be creative and differentiate your practice, and while you have to also conform to non-creative exam frameworks to impress this woman right here. Does anyone know who she is? Ooh. Well, I'll tell you who she is. Go and Google Chief of Ofsted and see who comes up, and then Google the Chief of Ofqual and see who comes up. Have we got someone in chat? Who's that? HMI. Absolutely, Her Majesty's Chief Inspector of all schools. So, does anyone else want to take a guess or what else she's been in her life? Everyone, a couple of minutes. So she's been effectively a civil servant most of her life. She has been the head of Ofqual as well. So not only is she now the head of Ofsted, she was the head of Ofqual. She is Amanda Spielman, and she's the one you got to impress. And she only took the role in 2017, and she's had mixed reactions, but so far she's been very keen to see us moving away from teaching to the test and yet somehow teaching to the test. So we have to be creative and differentiated in our practice while conforming to these very, very stringent kind of methodologies that she wants us to follow. And that's the same for any course, I think, even, in infant and primary to secondary and FE, we're all kind of fighting against this desire to teach off the books and yet somehow get the grades we want. And that's on the one hand. So we already got that challenge. On the second hand, we have the great enemy right here. There it is on screen for you. We need to compete and defeat it. Okay. That's had a multi-billion-pound head start on how to monopolize student attention. Now, this is something else. This thing right here, this mobile phone. We've only had smartphones of the capacity we're seeing now for the last 10 years, and I've worked in education for 10 years, and I have certainly seen a rapid change in student attention because of this. And students are right, by the way, to pay more attention to this than they are to you, because this is far more entertaining to them. It has fancier graphics. It doesn't ask them to do anything, at least not overtly, and it also gives them a little dopamine hit. I'm going to make these slides available to you after this, and I've got some notes in the slides, and there's a link to a scientific study, which I'll paraphrase. It's becoming more and more common now for students, young people in general, to get a dopamine addiction. Does anyone know what dopamine is and what it does? Answers in the chat if you do. Absolutely. It is 100% the feel-good chemical. It is the it is the little receptor we have in our brain, little productor, that whenever we do something good, it rewards us with a happy feeling. And there are a few ways that this manifests, and it manifests as a survival instinct, by the way, but it's mostly given through gambling, believe it or not, taking a chance. And you'll notice that many apps on phones, many functions on phones are designed to mimic the slot machine. You drag and you swipe and new things come up, and that really monopolizes the attention. In fact, a lot of young people are being diagnosed now with gambling disorders. And it's not because they're gambling, it's because they're using these phones. And so we're already against an enemy, against this device, which is monopolizing our students' attention and thereby co-opting their creativity and divergent thinking practice. And the phone really does do that. And most old media did. And before the phone, kids would go home, they wouldn't do their homework because they're watching TV. And that was where that energy went. But now it's with them all the time. And the worst thing is you can't take it off them. You take a phone off a student and it will trigger the same reaction as it does with an addict when you remove the thing they're addicted to straight away. It basically promotes hatred. So we have to do something about that because we're competing with it. So there are 3 steps to winning this battle overall. 1, you need to accept that this screen is here to stay, and it's only going to get more pervasive. What do I mean by that? Well, we've already seen it in the last few years. Smartwatches have come along. The next big step they're saying is glasses, smart glasses, which will be interesting. As well as that, we're probably going to see more like less obvious devices. We're already seeing it with the earpods as well. The earpods, we now can no longer tell if a student with long hair has earphones in. And by the way, it's not your job to check. It is not your job to become the ear inspector, so I shouldn't expect that. So it's therefore the next step is you need to be more entertaining than the screen. And I know that some teachers have an objection to that, but I believe fully that teaching is a performance. It's an act. You go on stage and your job is to monopolize the attention of a room full of individuals who might not want to give you their attention. So your job is to be entertaining. Now, the third step is the step that co-opts everything together, and that is you must become the law on how the screen is used. Not sort of when the screen can be used, but how it is used. When they have that phone, what are the appropriate actions? Because a addict, a learner, will always take any option to use this screen than not at all. So those are your 3 steps that you need to follow. And you've got to follow them. So here comes our first Q&A. What does creativity in student work mean to you? And what does creativity in your personal practice entail? So those are 2 questions I'd like you to try and answer in the chat, please. Let's see how we get. Let's see how we go. So please try and answer these. If you can, I'll leave them on screen. I'll go to the chat. Breaking the norm. Very good. Yeah, engaging with ideas outside the general syllabus. I love that intent. Doing something differently in a way different to someone else. Something learners produce as unique and outside the box. Very good. Encouraging enthusiasm and engagement. I absolutely love that. Absolutely. We shouldn't punish the enthusiasm to use a phone. We should encourage it and then direct it. 100%. Anyone else got anything they'd like to add? Absolutely more than a worksheet. Worksheets are the death of creativity. They serve a function. I'm not going to lie. They are a fantastic escape hatch when everything is going to pot, but they are not creative in the least. Although some people would argue that they are, of course. So how about in student work? In student work, when you say, "Oh, be creative and design some and write some notes," what are you expecting from them in that? So when you tell a student to be creative, their immediate reaction usually is, "Oh, I'm not creative." And it's your job then to kind of wake them up a little bit and show them how to be more creative in their own work. Now, a simple thing you can do there is color. Getting students to use colors and highlighters and gel pens and everything they can to write their notes, and then turn something simple as a copy exercise into something that's really exciting and really fun. And you also expect to see creativity in the way they approach things, but creativity itself is actually made up of a couple of set elements, which I'll go through later. You might actually be expecting a student to be a divergent thinker as opposed to a creativity, and they're 2 distinct entities, but they rely on each other very heavily. And creativity in your personal practice, you need to make sure that you're continuously combining ideas you're getting from others and sharing good practice. And it's never been easier to share good practice with fellow teachers. The EdTech demonstrator program has just shown that, but also in-house, make sure you're using your VLE. If you've got Google Classroom, fantastic. Set one up for your staff, yeah, and set one up between groups of those staff in specialist groups and share that practice. It's not just for CPD Day. It's not just for Inset Day anymore. We have to be continuously evolving so we can win this endless battle against monopolizing technologies. We need to make sure we're doing that. So here it is. So creativity and divergent thinking are 2 separate concepts. So creativity is the ability to synthesize 2 or more separate concepts and run them through a filter of self to produce something unique and has value? It might also be a myth, but that is a philosophy question, which I'm not equipped to answer, but it's something to think about. Is there such a thing as an original idea? I don't think I'm really qualified to tell you that, even as a writer. So what do I mean by self? Self is a learner's or your own personal experiences. Cultural capital, cultural poverty contribute towards the sense of self, which creativity then feeds into. So cultural capital and cultural poverty, we'll talk about cultural poverty first. Cultural poverty is when a learner or a young person, a growing mind, does not have access to things like art galleries, theatre, museums, aesthetic experiences which teach them about the world, to which they can come up with their own judgments. They also may not be raised in an environment in which conversations and questions are had, and that's on the grow. I believe the last statistics was 30% of young people in our schools. 30%, not 3%, not 13, 30% are growing up in poverty, and poverty has a direct correlation with cultural poverty as well. And without that sense of self to filter in these, to filter through aspects, then their creativity is going to be stunted. So it is now your job as a teacher to give them that sense. And digitally, we've never been in a more enlightening age. They can find out anything. You can take them on virtual museum tours, anything like that. And it's your job to be changing with those times, being creative. Now, on the other hand, we have divergent thinking. And that's the ability to take a single concept or objects and applying different perspectives on its potential. Now, that is the real key to learning, I think. I think while creativity is vital in all subjects, divergent thinking is where you start your student. Teach them to look at something from 2 viewpoints. When you've got 2 viewpoints, tell them to do it from 5. And when you get 5, they'll go nuts and they'll do all the viewpoints you can. As well as that, you can also ask them to think of different uses for certain concepts. So if you're a science teacher, for example, and you're running experiments, ask them to think of different methods and different applications for that experiment. Psychology and sociology is the same thing. Think of different ethical issues, and you may already be doing that. And digitally, again, they have the power of research now, and we should be 100% telling them to, get your phone out, have a look, Google this concept. What do you think? What are people saying about it? And you'll be surprised the amount of additional ideas that come out of that, because they rely on that phone as that little bit of safety net to make sure their ideas are valid. And eventually they'll get out of the habit of relying on it to give them that validation. They'll be doing it naturally. So those are the 2 aspects that I want to talk about. On the one hand, creativity. On the one hand, the ability to take lots of bits of information, filter them through yourself, and then produce something. And the other one is just to take one thing and consider its applications. They're linked and yet distinct. So if you're interested in this, and I've linked here, I'm not going to show you the video. If you're interested in divergent thinking and creativity, it's worth studying the works of Sir Ken Robinson. Sir Ken Robinson passed away very recently, and he was the kind of the grandfather of divergent thinking within modern education. We sadly lost him to the Americas in the 2000s, but he contributed so much towards this idea. And this video here, Changing Educational Paradigms, is one of the reasons I'm teaching at all, because it inspired me so much. And I thoroughly, even though it's 10 years old, recommend you watch it after this. It will be in the slides. That's why I've linked it. But you can just Google Changing Educational Paradigms, or even just Sir Ken Robinson, and you'll get access to that video. It really is worth watching and worth studying his stuff. So, oh, that's going to play. Don't play. No, thank you. There we go. So we'll start with question 1 this time rather than doing 2 at once. First question, please answer this in the chat. What act of creativity can you do in a class, but you cannot translate to the online sphere? So what act of creativity can you do in class, but you just can't translate online, or you can't translate very well? If we can get responses in the chat, that'd be great. Finish a team poster. Yep, absolutely. Posters in general, very difficult. What else have we got? In a way, it's encouraging because it means you've all kind of figured, you've all done so. Hello. Oh, Chantel, you're here. Hello. Moved around on your feet for activities. Absolutely. And as much as, you can suggest maybe putting drones in student houses to buzz around their heads as they learn it. It's not necessarily the easiest thing, but very good. Anything else? So I'll start answering some of these questions while if anyone else wants to add to this. So with a team poster, the benefits of doing revision tasks together are immense and amazing. And, designing things, collaborating together is so, so important. And being able to design things together as well. And I'm going to show you an app later you can use to do that. So they can design things together. Okay. And the importance of that, poster revision space. Chantel, moving around the room. Now, I know that Meet has this. I don't know if Zoom does, but Meet definitely does. I don't know if Teams has it. But now we have a feature within Google Meet which allows us to separate students out into separate classes, separate little breakout rooms, which then the tutor can go between, and you can kind of mimic that energy. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same as that personal interaction, and that's the reason there's been such a mental health crisis in learners not being able to access it. And being creative as well with that, you can also think about sharing documents and just being a word on the page, using different fonts, things like that. Alex, thanks for coming, by the way, Alex. The camera only shows one dimension of the persona. Absolutely, it does. And we're a long way away holographic technology here, Alex, but it's something that's still good, and I think it's valued. Having that face-to-face connection, voice-to-voice connection is still important, though, because it allows for expression and creativity of expression. So there we are. It's quite important. So, second question: what creative acts are better online? Are there any that teaching remotely allow you to do? That only teaching remotely can you do certain creative acts. Is there anything there? Has anyone found out in their journey? Engaging in practical workshops. Uh, Unknown. Was that for a was that for the first question or the second one? First question, yeah, absolutely, and we're seeing a lot of advancements in VR technology, which is helping us with that as well. It's not there yet, but it's getting there. So maybe look at if you can afford to look at some VR headsets. There are lots of educational apps coming up for them now, which allow them to experience some semblance of a practical session, although it's never going to be the same thing. So second question still, does anyone know anything they've found that's easier to do online? Does anyone think about how they mark work? Has that improved? Audio and video feedback. I like that. Absolutely. Yeah, recording verbal feedback. That I said before, they love to hear your voice, and it's by itself a very creative method as well, and we love that too. Um, they love and honestly, giving feedback, even on something as simple as Google Docs on a written document, you can add comments in, you can highlight, you can actually show examples. Now, before, last year, if I wanted to rewrite a paragraph for students' creative writing, I'd sit there for a good 15 minutes, find some space in the margins, and it was a messy process. But now it's as simple as adding a comment, and it cleans it up a little bit, and it makes students, often with SPLD, a lot more receptive to this feedback as well, because it's clear, it's there, they know what to act on. And it allows them to, you can also pose questions a lot easier as well. And you can watch them work out that question. You kind of embed that divergent thinking within there, get them to work out different perspectives. You can also do peer feedback a lot easier, I think, as well. There's a lot less reticence to peer feedback if it's just a digital copy. So they feel a little bit more, they feel protected by that screen. And that's a common thing. That's the reason they use social media. It protects them from the outside world. And if you can latch on to that protection aspect of it and incorporate that within your feedback, you're going to win, and they're going to be more engaged with you. So it's worth thinking about that, especially if you've got a student that's very socially media conscious. I know with younger students that's just not possible, but with the older ones it definitely is. What else have we got here? Oh, we got loads. Let's have a look. Marking online PDFs. Yes, it does, absolutely. Being able to see what a child is writing, making without disturbing. Yes, absolutely. Google has the same thing. I think Word does as well on Office 365, Richard. Not hovering over someone's shoulder digitally is far less intrusive, and that's great. Sharing whiteboards, absolutely. If you're using Driver tool, make sure you check out Google Jamboard. I rave about it. It's fantastic. Fantastic whiteboard function there, and reaction stickers as well. I found that as well to make, if I'm typing instructions to them because we're having a quiet day or something, then they can just press the thumbs up button if they see it, and that's great. Innovative software, absolutely, Alex. There's so much out there, and there's more all every day, and lots of web clients as well. Richard said, quiet children are more likely to speak up, answer questions they don't know. Who's heard it? It's only the adult who hears. Absolutely, very much. And some quiet children might prefer to type it, and some quiet children might prefer to write it on their work, and that helps as well. Less distractions. Yep, and differentiation of resources. That's amazing. Google Classroom is great for that because you can write 3 separate assignments and hand out those assignments to the same class, but filter them by individual student. And differentiation is creativity, by the way. It is creativity. It's mixing all your knowledge plus everything else and getting an answer. So really, yeah, it's fantastic. It really is. Yep, that as well. You no longer have to segregate. Though sometimes the children do share that, and that's a problem. But you no longer have to segregate, obviously, in class. And as a student who used to be in set 4 out of 5 for maths, that I can't tell you how unmotivated I was to perform in a low set. And we have to move away from marking these students out by ability in such an overt way. Yeah, no running out, duplicating resources, absolutely. It's saved a lot of time as well for a lot of educators as well. So yeah, I really like using quiz apps and poster apps and things like that, which leads me to this section of the talk. So here are 3 digital strategies for 3 learning aspects that involve creation. All right. Hopefully, you will have heard of some of these. You might not know exactly how to use them, so keep on listening. There are some here which even I hadn't heard of until recently. A big shout out to my student teacher, Jess, who introduced me to ThingLink. It's absolutely fantastic. So let's start over here with Kahoot, which we should all know and love and use, but Kahoot can be used wrong, and Kahoot is used very much for the assessment side of things. So remember, we have to assess, revise, and create with our students to create this kind of circle of education. And I say active revision rather than passive, because active revision requires them to actually go and seek it out as opposed to just absorb it through the walls. And we'll go to absorbing things through the walls in a minute. So starting with Kahoot. So Kahoot.com for Quizmasters, Kahoot.it for players. So Kahoot is an app that requires them to have a phone or an iPad or a Chromebook or laptop in the classroom and with access to the internet. And your students will log in to Kahoot.it, and you will then log in to Kahoot.com and load up a quiz that either you designed or was designed for you by someone else on a topic of your choice. And when you click play, a little code comes on the screen, and your students can then join that. And what they see is their phone fills up with little squares that correspond to answers on the board. They tap them and they get the answer right, and it works in rounds as well. So they get it's timed. There's rounds, and if your students react well to competition, which the majority of mine do, I'm an English teacher, I teach FE, they love it, no matter whether they're sports students, IT students, media, bricklayers, hair and beauty, they all have a little bit of competition. And they love to be able to show off what they know. And they have that added protection of a screen and a nickname. Now, it's free, by the way. This is an entirely free app, and it's only for basic quizzes that it's free. There are advanced features on there, and I'd recommend maybe taking the 30-day free trial if you can, see if they work for your organisation, especially if you have any kind of pullover budgets. Worth to see if Kahoot can work for you. I could say personally, I've never used the expensive version because I never needed it. I use it for quizzes, and its basic function here is just to design these quizzes. But obscure functions here, some that people don't know about, is to differentiate learning. You can make several quizzes and you can make several answers, but as well, you shouldn't just be saying, right, here's question one, move on, question two. You should be taking the answer, seeing who got into first place, encouraging that person, picking someone else that maybe didn't pass, and asking them maybe a leading question or an easier question, and break it down. The quiz shouldn't end between rounds. It should keep going, keep them thinking. Maybe award separate points if you can for those answers. Automated tracking is fantastic. You can download the results every single quiz as a spreadsheet, and you can combine those in Drive and do prizes. We do something called the Box of Awesome in my classroom. Every time you go in the Box of Awesome, get a mark. You get 3 marks. Send that at home, and it's a little positive thing. Best thing is also it works digitally. You can just share your screen like I'm doing to you right now. Press the play button, and they can join from home, and you can still see that competition doesn't go away. They're still really keen. The flaws are it can be hacked. Okay, I didn't know this until it happened to me. There are websites out there made by unscrupulous individuals where if you enter a game pin into it, it will flood your entire quiz with 50 to 60 fake names, often quite offensive. Now, Kahoot realized this pretty quickly on, and they added an option which isn't obvious on the actual board. And you'll see it if you look. It says two-step verification, which means students have to enter a number and a series of shapes. And then they do that, it's fine. Those shapes change every 6 seconds. And they're easy to do. And once students get into it, it's fine. So they'll complain for a little bit, but it works. So that's its one flaw. And a sort of a subflaw, I do feel that almost it can be overused and it can be used in place of teaching. No, it's there to assess and it's there to be built upon, not to replace teaching. It inspires competition and it inspires collaboration. One of the modes is team, so you can get them in teams, but also occasionally if you've got a weak student and a strong student, sit them near each other, and they'll help each other because that's what students do. They do tend to help. They tend to be quite friendly to each other sometimes. So that's Kahoot. If you haven't heard of it, I know that's kind of unlikely because it is one of the biggest quiz out. Have a look, design something, and better yet, if you're stuck, if you're late in, let Kahoot design one for you and go and just Google some quizzes. So that's Kahoot. So the next one is Canva. Now, Canva is a lifesaver when it comes to designing and populating your classroom with posters. A lot of people still use Publisher for their posters. Some people use PowerPoint or slides, and Paint. Don't use Canva.com. Now it's free for most design options, but some images and tools require subscription services. Now, with the subscription, don't worry about it too much. You don't need it. Everything you can really do with it, you can already do. Its basic function is it designs professional-looking posters and revision card designers skills services. You can design any kind of paper resource on this. Worksheets, which I know are the death of creativity, but this can actually help a little bit, make it more attractive. Wall posters, revision cards, flashcards, anything. It will design it, and it will look great too. I'll show you, maybe get to show you some examples later. And the best thing is, it's very easy to use. Very, very easy to use. Can we just stay muted unless we got a question? Has someone got a question? No, back on mute again. Fantastic. No worries. So everything is on there. It's like Google Drive, or obviously it saves automatically, and you can print them yourself. You don't have to believe Canva and saying only they can print it. You just click download and you can print it off yourself. So there's no extra cost there. Now, I want to go back to what Fiona said earlier, and Fiona was like, "Oh, group posters, we missed doing those." Canva has now got a function which allows you to share your post with someone else on the site. So you can share it with your teacher, you can share it with your students, you can share it with your friends, you can share it with anyone. And then everyone has a copy and you can all work on it together. And I've started setting my learners up with activities. So rather than copy these notes down, write these notes. Because yes, I have to make sure they're writing the notes to make sure the exam framework is followed. But now I'm saying, right, design a poster with all these revision notes on it. And they come up with some really beautiful designs. And because it aids them in designing it, because it gives them that little boost. And they can also design this on their phone, by the way, or an iPad. It doesn't have to be on a computer. They love it and they think they've done really well, and they want to then print that off. And what I like about that is if they're working from home, if they're isolated, if you're teaching certain subjects remotely, you can print it for them, send it to them, and they can fill up their bedroom not with scrappy post-it notes and revision cards that fall off the wall. They can fill them up with beautiful posters that actually help them. And its only flaw is it's limited by a paywall for certain functions. Which will come up occasionally and be a bit of a pain, but you can get around them if you know what you're doing. But they are beautiful, they are professional, they are accessible, and that's Canva. Has anyone used Canva before? I'm interested in actually polling this. Has anyone used Canva before in their work? Yeah, Stephen has. Very good. Excellent stuff. Richard, Adobe Spark Post, never heard of that before. That looks amazing though. I like that. I have to look into that for sure. We have a couple of Adobe Suite things here. But if you haven't looked at Canva, that's go look at it. It's so quick as well. It's quicker than using Publisher. It saves you time to do things. Its only flaw, I suppose, in that aspect, there's not many communities built around it. Hopefully that'll change. Maybe that's something the EdTech program can get on quickly, because it's amazing. There are other poster apps out there, just like Kahoot had lots of other quiz apps out there. But this is by far the best. This is by far the best. Okay. Here we go. ThingLink. Now, ThingLink's new to me. Big shout out to Jess, my student teacher, for introducing me to this, because it's really, really good. There are some pricing options, but I haven't yet encountered anything that I couldn't do for free. Its basic function is it creates augmented reality classrooms that link to digital resources. And if that phrase scares you, it scares me as well. Augmented reality isn't virtual reality. It isn't a completely digital space. It is icons and ideas on top of our normal, meat space eyesight. Augmented reality is just little hyperlinks stuff. And you think, well, how can that apply? And I'm going to show you my ThingLink that my student teacher did for me of my classroom, and you can see how it works. Now, imagine it as this: you take a picture of your classroom full of posters, full of the things that they'll miss when your students aren't there. You put it through the ThingLink program, and you can add clickable areas of that screen that take you from anything from YouTube to Google Classroom to BBC Bite Size. Anything you can think of, it'll take you there. And even link just images on that site, like go into detail of a poster. I believe you can also use it for walking tours. You can do 360 videos now, and ThingLink could interact with that. And I think that's where the paywall starts to come in. But you can, if you're introducing a nervous student or doing a small scale thing, you can actually do a ThingLink on there, and you can send them the video. The sign up is it's flawed. It could be convoluted. It likes to take you through lots of different menus and try. It doesn't really make it very easy to access. It's one of those things you have to spend a little while with to get it to work. But I haven't seen anything in terms of concept and design as unique as this. I've seen things similar which are much harder to do and require a lot of editing skills, but ThingLink is by far the easiest one to use. I'm going to quickly link. I hope it works. The ThingLink that Jess made for me of my classroom into the Meet chat. So if you click on that, you're going to see my classroom. And you'll see exactly what I mean. So take a look at that now. I'll give everyone a minute or so to have a look. If you can't click on it for a reason, I'm going to share it in this tab as well. So you can see there's my classroom, happy place, all socially distanced where it can be. And on here, it links to all these posters. So I click here, it'll take you to a Revision website. You click here, takes you to some of my articles that I've written about making characters magical. Here's some YouTube videos on the subject of analyze. I've taken a poster about the pedal method we use to answer a question. I've linked it to a slide, or rather Jess did it for me. I'm going to get in trouble if I keep saying I did it. You can link directly to Cahoots as well, and you can do it for Canva too. Nothing wrong with doing that. And again, you've got some videos on there, so have a look. You can do so much, and think of some things you can do, because there are students out there that are still isolating for health reasons, and they miss that classroom environment. Bring it to them, and see how it goes. It's worth doing. Wayne there, stick another EdTech demonstrator link in there. Please register your interest. Please have a look. Very important. So that's ThingLink, and it's fantastic. It really is. So overall, going back to this page now, these three things. So we'll go from the start again. So for assessment, use Kahoot, but use it wisely. Don't just rely on it to teach for you. Make sure you're getting something out of it. And that can be used digitally. That can be used remotely by sharing your screen. Canva, it can be used in the classroom. You can be used in the classroom by giving them Chromebooks and saying, share this, do work on this together. Running competitions for the nicest looking poster. And nothing gets them more motivated than saying, if I really like it, I'm going to print it off and put it on the wall. Because then it's got some physical kind of manifestation of their own creative practice. And remotely, you can assign them as homework. Hand me this in, share it with me, and you can track that. Canva do allow you to sign in with some educational accounts. And I think there are a couple of free features on that, and I think they allow for that kind of sharing of information. ThingLink allows active revision. If they ask a question, tell them to go find the answer and give them a ThingLink to look at. It's very useful, especially if you're a head of a department. It's very useful for if you're looking to introduce people to your department, you can give them a ThingLink. And that's good. You can do it. And how can you use it in class? You can get them to design their own. There's no barrier on this. Get them to reflect on your own classroom if you need to. Same with the Kahoot, by the way. Students can make quizzes for each other, and they'll have an absolute riot of a time doing it. And yes, some of these quizzes will be naff. Some of them will be inappropriate, but that's educational behavior management in the 21st century. You just got to get with the times there, I'm afraid. So those are your three digital strategies and your three learning aspects, and how you can accomplish them in a creative, in-person, and digital method. So to recap what we've gone through so far, we've talked about creativity. We've talked about divergent thinking. We've looked at the barriers we're facing and how we can incorporate that screen and make it ours, not theirs. We haven't got those multi-billion pounds of research, but we do have our authority still, and we do have the ability to use apps and use them wisely and become the law on how the screen is used, and to make the screen social as well, because sometimes we can hide behind that. So bring them in. So lastly, let's ask some questions. So if you have any questions for me about anything we've talked about today, if you have any questions for Wayne about any further kind of things the EdTech program can do, if you have any questions for each other, this is an open forum. We've got 10 minutes. Please ask away. If you want to type them out, I'll get to them. And if you want, I can invite you to talk if you've got something else you want to say. Wayne there posting something very useful about with ThingLink. Very good. Thank you, Wayne. So yes, any questions from anyone? I'm glad, Helen. I hope you use it, and if you do, please share it as well. I'd love to see what people kind of come up with it, because it's new to me. I'd love to see how. So thank you very much. That's great, Helen. Anyone else got any questions for me? No questions, Alex? That's fine. Thank you for coming, Alex. Really appreciate that.
How's that been for everybody?
Yeah, let me know how you get on with the 19 plus learners. These things are quite simple, believe it or not, especially Canva. I think it's really, really simple. So I'd start simple with it and work up, because I have some adult learners and they do suffer. So slowly but surely they will get there though. So thank you, Richard. Really appreciate that. Hopefully there's something new in there for you to grasp onto and use. No worries, Lacan. Just glad you could make it, man. Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate that. We will indeed. Anytime you like. I'll leave my details on here for people as well. If people want to get in contact, I'm always available. No worries, Chantal. I'm glad you enjoyed. Thank you so much for coming. I really, really appreciate that. Let me know how you get on. I think you're going to love Canva, especially because you're quite creative yourself. I'd like to see what you design. Oh, fantastic. Good to hear that. Excellent. Well, you know what? Once again, Wayne, thank you so much for organising this. Thank you to the EdTech Demonstrator Programme for organising all this event. We need more like it. So if anyone's interested, though, in a deeper analysis of any of the 3 programs we've used, Wayne and I have discussed running a micro session for each one. So Kahoot, Canva, ThingLink, if you want to know basically how to use it in detail, let us know. Send us an email. Send Wayne an email, most specifically, because he's the man, and we'll put something on for you. No problem.
I'll drop that into the chat so that you can contact me if you want to. But thanks very much, Josh. I only managed to see half the session because I've had to jump off and join another session that's looking at online lesson observations. But what I did catch was really useful. So thank you very much, Josh.
No worries, and thank you for acting as the sheriff of the chat and getting the bots out as well.